Hi Gateway Kids and families. Have you noticed how busy the birds are at the moment, how noisy they are and how busy they are getting food and making their nests? I've got a story today about a very worried sparrow. Let's see what happens to him. There once was a very worried sparrow. All the other birds looked up at the bright blue sky and sang for joy, but the very worried sparrow hung his head, shut his beak tight and looked worried. He had always worried, even when he was just a baby bird in the nest. His brothers and sisters kept saying, "Cheep, cheep, cheer up," but the very worried sparrow only said, "Meep, meep, oh dear." When he began to grow, the first thing he worried about was food. Oh dear, he thought, "I'm so hungry. Whatever am I going to eat?" His brothers and sisters did not seem to worry at all. They just sat in the nest looking up at the tree and the bright blue sky. "It's because they don't think," he said to himself. Suddenly there was a whir of wings and his mother arrived with 5 fat, juicy caterpillars in her beak. "Cheep, cheep, cheep," went all the baby birds, and she popped a caterpillar into each mouth. Very soon all the baby birds were quite fat and their feathers had begun to grow. One day Father Bird said, "I think it is time you all learnt to fly." "Cheep, cheep, hooray," said the little birds, all except the very worried sparrow. He said, "Meep, meep, oh dear," and looked more worried than ever. The sparrows hopped out of the nest onto a big branch. They sat in a line, bravely flapping their wings. One by one they set off. "Whee! This is lovely," they called. The very worried sparrow hopped from one foot to the other. "I'll never do it," he cheeped to himself. "Oh dear." He was so frightened he lost his balance and topped off the branch. He gulped, opened his little wings wide, and flew. "There," his mother said as he landed beside her. "You can do it too." As the spring days turned into warm summer, the little birds grew and grew. They learned to find caterpillars among the green leaves and seeds on the brown earth. Snip, snap went their busy beaks. All except the very worried sparrow. "It's such a big place out there," he thought. "I might get lost away from our nest. Meep, meep, oh dear." At dusk, when they were settling down for the night, Father Sparrow gathered them all together warm and snug in the nest. He began to tell them wonderful stories of long ago and far away, of the great Father who made the world and everything in it, of how the day begins and where the wind comes from, and all the little things that every creature knows. The young birds listened with bright eyes, all except the very worried sparrow. He was too worried to listen. By midsummer the very worried sparrow felt a bit braver. He set off from home, flying here and there, looking for food and worrying about where to find it. The open fields looked a good place. Suddenly a shadow rushed across the ground. The little sparrow felt his heart go bump. Above him hovered the terrible sparrowhawk. He was too frightened even to worry. He crouched down small and still and waited. There was a rush of wings in the air and the sparrowhawk struck. When the sparrow opened his eyes, he saw the hawk flying up and away. He held a small field mouse in his great claw. "Oh dear," breathed the very worried sparrow, feeling quite weak. "Oh dear, oh dear." As soon as he felt better, he flew home as fast as his wings would carry him. After that, the little sparrow looked more worried than ever. The autumn winds blew and the trees shed their leaves. "Oh dear," thought the very worried sparrow, "it's getting colder and colder. How shall I keep warm? And where am I going to find food to eat and water to drink?" But he did. There was one little pond so sheltered that it didn't freeze, and if he looked hard he could still find seeds and berries in the hedges. And later on the children came and scattered bread on the snow. Spring came at last, and the snow melted away into the grass. The sparrows were very excited. "It'll soon be nesting time," they said. and began to look around for partners. The girl sparrows giggled and whispered on the branches. The boy sparrows flew and swooped and showed off. Soon there were pairs of birds everywhere, searching for a safe place to build their nests, except for the very worried sparrow. Oh dear, he thought, now what shall I do? No one will want me for a mate. Sadly, he flew off by himself to the small apple tree at the far end of the garden. But he found there was someone there already. It was another little sparrow, and she looked very shy. "Cheep," she said in a small voice. "Meep, meep," said the very worried sparrow, suddenly looking more hopeful. "Will you be my mate?" he asked, all in a rush. "Oh, yes," said the shy little sparrow, and she smiled at him. At first the sparrow and his mate were very happy, but soon the very worried sparrow started to worry again. "Where should we build our nest?" he thought. "The others have taken the best places." The shy little sparrow flew back to the small apple tree at the far end of the garden. "Look," she chirped, "no one has started to build here yet, and it's very quiet and safe." The apple blossom fell and new green leaves hid the nest from sight. Before long the shy little sparrow was sitting on the nest looking very proud. Under her warm feathers were 5 beautiful eggs. But the very worried sparrow was looking very, very worried. "Meep, meep, oh dear," he chirped. "I hope my eggs are safe. A cat might come, or a hawk. The tree might fall, and how shall I feed the babies?" "Ooh, coo! What's the matter?" asked a gentle voice. It was a turtle dove with soft feathers and a very kindly look in her eyes. "I've never seen a sparrow look so worried before." "Well," said the sparrow, sighing, "there are such a lot of things to worry about." And a big tear rolled down his beak and splashed onto his claw. "Ooh, coo!" called the dove gently. "Don't you know about the great Father who made us all? Haven't you been listening to the stories of long ago and far away?" "Well, no," sniffed the sparrow. "I was too worried to listen." "Well," said the dove, "when you were a baby bird, didn't you always have food?" "Why, yes," said the sparrow. "And when you learnt to fly, you didn't get hurt?" "No, I didn't," said the sparrow, thinking back. "What about the sparrowhawk?" the dove cooed gently. "Your time had not yet come, had it?" "I suppose not," said the sparrow. "And your food and water, your mate and your nest, and those beautiful eggs, they all came in good time, didn't they?" "Yes, yes, they did," chirped the sparrow, beginning to look a little happier. "Will you come home with me, please?" he said to the dove. "Come and tell us more. I promise I will listen this time." And so the dove flew to the little apple tree at the far end of the garden and perched on the branch next to the nest. As the sun set slowly over the hill and all the birds were settling for sleep, the dove told the sparrows the story of long ago and far away, of the great Father who made the world and everything in it, of how the day begins and where the wind comes from, and all the little things that every creature knows. She spoke of the seasons and of the years, and of how things grow and new life comes. She told how the great Father knows each creature and its time on the earth. Next day, when the sun rose, everything looked sparkling new in the morning light. The flowers opened their faces to the sun, and all the birds were singing. There was a little noise from the nest. Tock, 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 went one of the eggs. Tock, tock, tock. "It's our babies!" cried the shy little sparrow excitedly. "Today is the day they will hatch." Then the very worried sparrow smiled. He looked just as happy as his mate. "I can't wait to see them," he said. "We can feed them and watch them grow and teach them to fly. There are so many things to do. And I want to tell them about the great Father who made the world and everything in it, and who knows each sparrow. Then they won't have to worry for a single day. and he flapped his wings and sang for joy with all the other birds. Cheep, cheep, he sang. Cheep, 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 loud enough to burst with happiness.